Of all the wonders that history has whispered through time, few shimmer in the imagination, quite like the Hanging Gardens of Babylon. They rise in memory as a mirage of perfection, terraces overflowing with green life in the heart of the desert, waterfalls glimmering in the heat, and flowers from distant lands cascading down walls of stone. The ancient world counted them among its 7 wonders, yet no traveler has ever truly seen them. No architect has ever drawn their plan, and no archaeologist has ever unearthed their remains. Still, their legend endures, suspended between history and dream, between the real and the imagined, as though the gardens themselves were never meant to belong fully to the earth. To understand the magic of the Hanging Gardens, one must first enter the world that gave them life, or at least the idea of them. Babylon, around 600 BCE, was the jewel of Mesopotamia, a city built upon the fertile plains between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers, where civilization itself had once been born. Its ruler, King Nebuchadnezzar II, was one of the most powerful monarchs of the ancient world, a man of ambition and divine purpose. Under his reign, Babylon became not merely a capital, but a vision of paradise, a city of temples, ziggurats, and palaces, adorned with glazed bricks in every shade of blue and gold, glowing like a mirage against the sand. The Ishtar Gate, with its processional way guarded by lions and dragons, proclaimed Babylon's might and glory to all who entered. Yet amid this vast display of power, legend tells of something more intimate, more human, a gesture of love that would echo through the ages. The story, as ancient writers told it, begins with a queen who longed for her distant homeland. Her name was Amytis, a princess from Media, a land of mountains and cool forests far to the north. When she came to Babylon to marry Nebuchadnezzar, she found herself in a flat, arid world of heat and dust. Though her husband built her a palace of gold and stone, her heart ached for the green hills of her youth, the scent of pine, the whisper of leaves, the sound of running water. Seeing her sorrow, Nebuchadnezzar resolved to recreate her homeland in the middle of the desert. And so, the Hanging Gardens were born, a mountain built by man, draped in greenery, where the queen could walk among trees and flowers as if she were home again. Whether this story is fact or fable, it captures something essential about the gardens. They were not only a feat of engineering, but also a monument to longing, love, and the human desire to bend nature to emotion. Ancient writers like Strabo, Diodorus Siculus, and Philo of Byzantium described the gardens with awe. They wrote of terraces rising one above the other, supported by stone columns and vaulted chambers, covered with deep soil in which great trees could grow. Streams of water flowed down from above, irrigating the plants and creating a cool mist that hung in the air. To sustain this paradise in the scorching Babylonian climate, the engineers devised an ingenious system of irrigation, perhaps an early form of the screw pump later attributed to Archimedes, or a chain of buckets lifting water from the Euphrates to the highest terrace. These descriptions, though written centuries after the gardens were said to exist, paint a vision so vivid that it continues to inspire artists and architects today. Imagine approaching Babylon by river at dawn, the city walls towering above the banks, the blue-tiled gate shimmering in the light, and above it all a mountain of green rising against the golden sky. Palm trees sway in the morning breeze, vines spill over marble balustrades, cascades of water sparkle like liquid glass. From afar, it would seem as if the very heavens had descended upon the earth. Inside this living palace, the air would be cooler than the desert outside. The shade of the terraces created an oasis of comfort, where exotic birds nested in branches imported from distant lands. The scent of jasmine, myrtle, and cedar mingled with that of figs and pomegranates. The sound of trickling water accompanied the hum of life, gardeners tending flowers, musicians playing flutes for the queen, servants carrying fruit baskets along shaded walkways. It was said that the sunlight, filtered through leaves and vines, painted the walls in shifting tones of green and gold. For those who lived in Babylon, the gardens must have seemed like a fragment of paradise placed upon the earth by divine will. But as with all great myths, the Hanging Gardens exist in a twilight zone between history and imagination. Archaeologists have searched the ruins of Babylon for centuries and have found nothing that can be definitively identified as the gardens. The city, located near modern-day Hilla in Iraq, still bears traces of Nebuchadnezzar's immense constructions. The vast walls, the temples, the ziggurat known as Etemenanki, believed by some to have inspired the biblical Tower of Babel. But no terraced garden, no mountain of greenery, no irrigation system carved into stone. This absence has led some scholars to question whether the Hanging Gardens ever stood in Babylon at all. The Greek historians who described them never saw them firsthand. Their accounts were based on older texts or hearsay. Some modern researchers have suggested that the gardens may have been located not in Babylon, but in Nineveh, the capital of Assyria, built by King Sennacherib about a century earlier. Sennacherib's inscriptions describe a palace complex with terraced gardens watered by an advanced system of aqueducts and canals. He even boasted of bringing water from distant mountains to feed his orchards, using technologies far ahead of his time. Could it be that later generations, confused by time and memory, attributed this wonder to Babylon instead of Nineveh? Others argue that the gardens might have existed in Babylon, but have simply vanished beneath the sands or been destroyed by centuries of floods and wars. After all, the Euphrates has shifted its course many times. The ruins that remain are only a fragment of what once was. The clay bricks of Babylon, once glazed and magnificent, crumble easily under water and time. Perhaps the gardens were built on wooden supports, long since decayed. Or perhaps they were never a single structure, but rather a collection of royal courtyards and terraces that later storytellers combined into one mythic whole. Yet even if the Hanging Gardens never physically existed, their influence on imagination and culture is undeniable. They became a symbol of human ingenuity, the power to defy environment, to create life where there should be none. In a world dominated by deserts and empires, the idea that a king could make trees bloom in the sand carried an almost divine resonance. The gardens represented more than luxury. They were an act of rebellion against nature's limits, a declaration that even the harshest world could be softened by beauty. Throughout history, the image of the Hanging Gardens has been reborn in countless forms. Medieval travelers searched for them as proof of the Bible's stories. Renaissance painters imagined them as scenes of paradise lost. Romantic poets used them as metaphors for longing and decay. Modern architects have drawn inspiration from them in designing rooftop gardens, vertical forests, and cities that blend nature with stone and steel. The dream of the Hanging Gardens endures because it speaks to something timeless in humanity, the need to shape our surroundings into reflections of our inner desires. In the ancient texts that mention Babylon, there is often a tension between its grandeur and its downfall. The city is described as both magnificent and doomed, a place of beauty and pride that would one day fall to ruin. The prophet Isaiah called it the glory of kingdoms, the beauty of the Chaldees' excellency, yet foretold that it would become desolation. Indeed, when Babylon fell to Cyrus the Great of Persia in 539 BCE, its wonders began to fade from living memory. The walls crumbled, the temples were looted, and the gardens, if they ever stood, withered away. The desert reclaimed what man had built, as it always does. And yet perhaps that is why the story of the Hanging Gardens still haunts us. It is not only a tale of creation, but also of loss. It reminds us that beauty, no matter how perfect, is transient. The queen's longing for her homeland, the king's devotion, the labor of countless builders and gardeners, all dissolved into dust. What remains is the idea, immortalized in words and art. The gardens became eternal precisely because they could not last. The deeper one looks into the legend, the more it reveals about the human condition. Every civilization seeks to build its own paradise, to capture eternity in stone and water. But time erodes even the grandest vision. The Hanging Gardens, whether myth or memory, embody the fragile balance between the dream of permanence and the reality of decay. They are the green breath of hope in a barren land, a monument to love and imagination standing against the inevitability of time. To imagine walking through the gardens today is to step into a space between worlds. You ascend marble stairs glistening with dew, hearing the murmur of unseen fountains. Around you, flowers from distant lands open their petals to the morning light. Lotuses from Egypt, lilies from Persia, roses from Media. Peacocks wander through the terraces, their feathers flashing like jewels. At the top, the queen stands beside a pool reflecting the endless blue of the sky. Nebuchadnezzar watches her smile, knowing that he has done the impossible. He has brought the mountains to Babylon. The air smells of cedar and honey. The sound of water seems to whisper through the leaves, carrying voices from long ago, voices of workers who mixed mortar under the sun, of scribes who recorded the king's glory, of travelers who spoke in wonder of what they saw. The gardens hum with life, yet beneath the beauty lies a melancholy note, as if the earth itself knows that this vision cannot last. The Euphrates flows on, patient and indifferent, carrying fragments of the city toward the sea. Centuries later, when Alexander the Great conquered Babylon, he sought to restore its glory. He was said to have stood among its ruins, dreaming of rebuilding the city, but death claimed him before he could begin. Perhaps he too was enchanted by tales of the Hanging Gardens, by the vision of paradise lost in the desert, the dream of beauty reclaimed from the dust. Today, archaeologists continue to search for traces of the ancient wonder. Satellite images, excavations, and ancient cuneiform tablets have revealed much about Babylon's layout, but the mystery of the gardens remains unsolved. Some fragments of irrigation canals have been found near Nineveh, lending weight to the theory that the wonder belonged to Assyria, not Babylon. Others insist that the heart of the legend still lies beneath the Iraqi soil, waiting for rediscovery. Until then, the Hanging Gardens remain an enigma, a masterpiece of human imagination, built as much from longing as from brick and stone. Perhaps the truth lies not in any one place, but in the shared memory of a people who dreamed of taming nature. The idea of the Hanging Gardens may have spread from city to city, evolving as it passed from one storyteller to another, until it became less a physical location and more a symbol of power, love, beauty, and the eternal human impulse to create order and grace amid chaos. When we picture the gardens today, we are not seeing the past, but rather our own reflection in it. The modern skyscraper draped in vines, the rooftop garden that turns grey cities green, the vertical forests that rise above smog, all echo the same ancient longing. We still build our hanging gardens, not in Babylon, but wherever we seek to bring life and meaning to barren places. The story lives because we keep retelling it, each time replanting its seeds in the soil of imagination. In the end, the Hanging Gardens of Babylon remind us that some wonders do not need to be proven to be true. Their power lies not in archaeology, but in myth, in the image of a king who built a mountain for love, of a queen who found her home again among trees that grew from human devotion, and of a city that reached so high toward heaven that even in ruin it still touches the stars. Whether they ever stood in stone or only in the dreams of poets, the Hanging Gardens endure as the green heart of an ancient world that still beats quietly in our own.